Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for our gallery talk with our two fresh squeezed artists. I would ask, even though you seem like a quiet bunch, if you're here and you're not one of the presenting artists, if you would mute yourself just in case. Thank you. My name is Amanda Cooper, and I am the curator of exhibitions for the Morian Art Center. And we are just thrilled to have this talk happening tonight. I'm going to share my screen. I'm assuming you all can see my screen. So once again, you're here for the Fresh Squeezed Artist Talk with Caroline Crawford and Norbert Gonsalves. This is the first of 4 artist talks that we'll be doing for our Fresh Squeezed 9 exhibition. And if you're interested in the other 3 talks, they are running through this month and next month. And if you go to our website, morianartcenter.org, you can find the listing of all the other talks. There's 2 more that are there's 2 more that are on this format, and then there's 1 that's in person. So let me see. Trying to get us out of the way. Okay. So this is the Morian Art Center on Central Avenue. We're located in beautiful downtown St. Pete. And we've been around since 1917, so over 100 years. And across the street from the Morian Art Center is the Chihuly collection that is presented, owned, and operated by the Morian Art Center. And I'm including this image of the Chihuly collection in this talk because the 2 artists that are presenting tonight are, their work is currently being shown in the featured artist gallery here at the Chihuly collection. This is the first time we've included this gallery in our Fresh Squeezed show in 9 years. So we're happy to be able to do that. Fresh Squeezed 9 is on view through June 22nd. And just a little bit, I'm going to scroll through some images of past Fresh Squeezed, so the first 8 years, while I talk a little bit about the overview of the project. So Fresh Squeezed started in 2017, which was when the Morian Art Center turned 100 years old. And we wanted to do an art exhibition that focused on emerging artists, which is what we focus on, emerging artists most of the year, but we wanted to do something really intentional and something that would continue on for years. And we came up with the idea of Fresh Squeezed. So all of the artists who apply for this show, it's an open application. And it's open to any artist in the state of Florida. And the only criteria we have for being an emerging artist is that you can't have had a solo show previously in Florida. That's it. Doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. If you haven't had a solo show, then we consider you an emerging artist. So we usually have, every year we have anywhere from 100 to 200 artists apply. And we have anywhere from 5 to 8 slots to fill, which is always very difficult to go through all of those applications and whittle it down to just a handful of artists. But it gives us a really good gauge of what's going on in our state. We have amazing artists in the state. So also, if you're interested in seeing all of the artists that we've ever had in Fresh Squeezed, there are 56 of them. If you go to our website to the Fresh Squeezed page, you'll see there's a button that says Fresh Squeezed Archive or something like that, and you can go through all of them and see all the past artists. So, like I said, in 9 years, we've exhibited the work of 56 artists from 23 Florida cities, and that goes everywhere from Pensacola to Miami. So it's truly a statewide exhibition. And if there's any artists here that are interested in applying, the call for entry usually goes online in the summer, usually in August. And then we select the artists in late November or early December. So if you're an artist watching that, be thinking about that. Okay, and I would like to thank our sponsors. Lisa and Perry Everett have been longtime friends and supporters of the Morian, and the Gobioff Foundation is an amazing resource for arts organizations and artists in the Tampa Bay area, and they are our founding sponsors for Fresh Squeezed. So thank you to them. Before I introduce the two artists that will be speaking tonight, I wanted to very quickly run through the other 6 artists who are not speaking tonight, but they'll have talks later on. This is Ryan Toth. He is a painter and sculptor who is currently living in West Palm Beach. This is Mary Helen Horn, who is one of 2 local artists that are in this exhibition. She lives in Tampa. She's a printmaker and an installation artist. This is Hannah Keats. She is currently living in Tallahassee. She's from St. Augustine. Lily Kapir-Seho is currently living in Brooklyn. She is a student at Brooklyn College, or she will be in the fall, and she is from Sarasota. Stella Arbelayes Tascon is living in Orlando. Benedicta Opoku-Mensah is currently a student at the University of Florida in Gainesville. So our artists come from all over this year. So I would like to introduce briefly, before they speak, our 2 artists tonight. First is Caroline Crawford. I want to back up and say, when we added the Chihuly Collection gallery to this roster, it was kind of a challenge because that gallery at Chihuly, if you're familiar at all with Dale Chihuly's work, it's glass and it usually fills the room and it's very colorful and it has that wow factor. And this featured artist gallery is right at the end when you exit the museum. So when I think about programming that space, I always think of an artist. You want an artist who also has that wow factor to not compete, but kind of compete with what they just saw at the Chihuly collection. And these 2 artists, I feel, really do that. They both have, they're just beautiful and colorful, and they have a lot of movement. It complements Dale Chihuly's work very much, and I just feel like it's a perfect segue from his artwork, as you will see soon. So first up speaking tonight, I'll introduce both artists briefly here, and then both artists will present their work right in a row. And while the artists are presenting, if you have any questions, we ask that you type it into the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. And then after the second artist has finished speaking, then we'll address all of the questions in the chat for both artists. That makes sense. So if you have a question, just type it in the chat and we'll get to it at the end of this talk. So first up is going to be Caroline Crawford. She is an artist who, when she applied, she was living in Gainesville and had just graduated from the University of Florida. And now she's living in the Fort Myers area. And her work, they're incredible paintings of women in water, as you'll see, and photorealistic, just incredible. That's a little view of her installation at the Chihuly Collection. And then secondly, we'll hear from Norbert Gonsalves. And Norbert was an artist that I was already aware of when he applied. He lives in Tampa, and he has been a longtime member of the Morian. In fact, one of his sculptures won an award in last year's member show. So I was a little familiar with his work and was very excited to be able to showcase it during this time. And I think their work really looks beautiful together. If you get a chance, come see the show in person. So without further ado, I'd like to stop sharing my screen and I will turn it over to Caroline.
Hello, let me just share. Can you guys see it okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Minimize this. All right. My name's Caroline Crawford. Thank you, Amanda, for that really nice introduction. I'm just going to go a little bit through my work today. And yeah, thank you to everybody who was able to come out to this. All right, so I'm incredibly honored to be a part of Fresh Squeeze 9 here at the Moraine Arts Center. This exhibition has been such a meaningful opportunity to share my work alongside a talented group of emerging artists. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to the entire team at the Moraine for their support, and especially to Amanda Cooper, whose thoughtful curation and guidance made this experience so smooth and inspiring. At the beginning here, I'm just going to go through some images from the show. I wanted to show some of the images because I know that some of you guys might not have been able to see it in person because it is in St. Pete. You'll see a collection of recent paintings that continue my exploration of figures in water, capturing fleeting moments of joy with friends shaped by light, movement, and a lot of hair, which you'll see is kind of a theme in a lot of my work. This body of work means a lot to me, and I'm so grateful to have it shown in this space and to be part of such a vibrant creative community. Seeing all of the other fellow Fresh Squeeze artists and their work has been a wonderful, inspiring experience, especially because everyone's work is so different. So it's really, really cool and inspiring to see the type of work that comes from all over the state. All right, so a little bit about my background. I just added some images here from my undergrad. I went to the University of Florida and received my BFA in painting in 2022. I really, really enjoyed this, the School of Art there in Gainesville. I thought that the cohorts were really nice, and I really got a lot of training, especially working in really large scale works. And I feel like if I hadn't gone through that training, I definitely wouldn't be able to do the things that I can today. I really prefer to work large scale with most of my paintings, so it was really great that I was able to get that training. All right, so a little bit about the work that I'm doing now. I would consider myself to be a representational painter for sure. My work explores the interplay between the human figure and the natural world, particularly through water. I was raised in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, so I've always been deeply connected to the outdoors, especially the coastal landscapes that continue to inspire my paintings today. So here are just some funny pictures that I would include. I feel like my work can seem a little bit serious sometimes, but in the photo shoots that I have with my friends, I can get really silly. I really go into the photography aspect with not a lot of planning. I just kind of bring my camera and I just, we just take photos, and whatever strikes the mood or whatever, is working really well, I kind of just go with. I would say that my art is rooted in both observation and memory, moments spent with friends in the sun, water, and laughter that I translate into vivid, emotionally resonant images. And yeah, these are just silly little things I thought I would include. So here are some more paintings. The two on the right are in the show, but the one on the left is not. Since childhood, I've always been drawn to light, shine, and color, anything reflective or radiant. This fascination appears throughout my work, whether in the shimmer of sunlight on skin or the way water distorts and refracts the body. I've always painted what catches my eye, the flicker of light, the intimacy of a glance, or the weightless joy of floating in water. These works are about connection, movement, and the quiet beauty found in ordinary sun-soaked days. Portraiture has always been at the heart of my practice. Even within group scenes or dynamic compositions, I'm ultimately interested in capturing the personality and presence of the individual. Many of my references come from personal snapshots, friends during summers, caught in spontaneous, unscripted moments of joy, and then also just using friends as different forms of reference. This painting on the right is one that I did in my undergrad. And these are two of my friends that were, I just took a picture of them sitting in my living room, on my living room floor. And then I kind of just painted this weird scene that doesn't necessarily make sense. It's a swamp and there's starfish there, but yeah, definitely pretty interesting. I work primarily in oil for its richness and flexibility, allowing me to build up depth and atmosphere. I also use watercolor and acrylic for studies sometimes and for more intuitive explorations. Across all mediums, I seek to balance realism with painterly texture, evoking not just what a moment looks like, but what it feels like. And here are just some images of me throughout my life. Art has always been part of my identity. I grew up surrounded by it. My mother is an artist, and making things has always been my way of understanding the world since before I can remember. That early exposure shaped not just my practice, but the way I move through life. Painting is how I process, celebrate, and connect. And these are just, me at all stages. Me and my mom, I look a little scary in that. And then this is a painting that I have in Nashville in a nightclub that just opened up last year. I thought I would include because I thought that was super exciting. And here are some inspirations that I have currently. Jay Lewis uses a lot of interesting texture in the way that they paint hair and just, the body. And I feel like I really hone in on hair texture in a lot of my work. So I look to his paintings to kind of get, some inspiration and different ideas and what I could be doing. And then Raisha Perlmutter is an artist that I've always loved for a really long time. And I love the softness within her work, and I get a lot of inspiration from her as well. All right, so that's pretty much it. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to listen and look at my work. It means a lot to share this with you, even through a screen. And big thanks again to the Moravian Arts Center and Amanda Cooper for making the show and talk possible. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead, stop sharing. Did it stop sharing?
It stopped sharing. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Caroline. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
I thought I knew everything there was to know, but I have questions now. So next, we're going to hear from Norbert Gonsalves.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning into this Zoom call today. I'm going to go through a whole deck of slides. But before I do that, let me thank Amanda Cooper and her team for the wonderful experience this Fresh Squeeze show has been. It's been a great exposure and recognition, and I'd recommend it to any artist who wants that. So let me start off by, I'll give you a bit of my background, my education, my work experience, and then I'll go on to my artist statement. I'll show you a bit of my work, but I think it's better if you see it in person, live. So, and then I'll go on to some of my influences. So let me start off with my education. So I studied at Sir J.J. Institute of Applied Art in Mumbai. That was a long time ago. I managed to dig up an old identity card, but that's all I have. I don't have any beautiful pictures like Caroline, so that'll have to do for now. I spent, after getting out of art school, applied art, I worked in advertising for almost 40 years in Mumbai and then in Toronto and then New York. So I worked on everything from ever-ready batteries to products for anaphylaxis and soft drinks and drugs, good kind of drugs, that were helpful to people. So yes, and then finally it was time to think about retirement, and I was going to move to Florida. So I took a few classes because I wanted to make sure I knew I wanted to paint. So I took a few classes in, oh, I can't advance this for some reason. Oh, there we go. At the Art Students League, I studied oil painting, I studied uh, watercolor painting, and I even did some abstract art before I finally moved to Florida. Um, Let me show you some of my early paintings. Some of them they were conceptual art kind of thing. They dealt with subjects like abuse of women in India, with things like dowry issues and things like that. So I did an exhibition in Brooklyn, and this was a booklet that uh, they printed. And then I also explored a bit of abstract art. This is just so you get a background idea of the kind of work I did before I came to clay. When I moved to Tampa, I met up with the Tampa regional artist, and there I met Candace Knapp, who's and I took her classes, and it's been a wonderful experience. She taught me everything I know, and she's been a great mentor to me. So, and I still go there every now and then. I'm not as regular as I should be, but these are some of my early pieces. And some of them dealt with like conceptual concepts, like this was to do with climate change. The thinking was, you know, at the rate we're going, we'll be extinct and the bugs will take over and the, flora, fauna will take over. There'll be a whole overgrowth. I also did lighter subjects like that dealt with music. This was my idea of Stairway to Heaven. So this was some of the kind of work that I was doing. And then I took a class at the Morian Center for Clay with Mike Canada, and it was experimental abstract sculpture. I tried my hand at abstract sculpture, but I didn't make much headway before. But this class really helped me gain the confidence to work in clay in an abstract form. So let me talk about my artistic statement. So in my work, I try to capture Rass. Rass is a Hindi word that means sap. That's the literal meaning. It's juice, sap. But I'm looking for that more elusive thing, the essence of my subject. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So I liken it to a kind of gesture drawing. That's not a detailed drawing or a study uh, of a model, but it captures the essence of movement. So that's kind of what my interpretation of Rass is. So my approach to this body of work starts with, I'll take a clay and I'll pass it through a clay roller, and I get a slab. And from that slab, I cut out shapes. These shapes are based sometimes abstract, simplified forms of an idea of a dance or a pose, a simplified form. And then I slowly attach them in a way that one piece supports the next. And I have to wait till it's what you call it, bone dry, not bone dry, it's leather hard. So when it's leather hard, I start attaching them and I go on building the piece. And sometimes I will always looking for, you know, the space in between, the the juxtaposition of shapes that make it interesting. And I'm also looking at the composition, working to make sure that it works, it supports itself. And I liken it to like building scaffolding. And you can see that in these pieces. You can see how I've actually put individual pieces together and how they form interesting shapes, similar to this. So I work mindfully. I would say I try to keep my mind quiet, looking at the possibilities and embracing the changes. This way, you know, it's not predetermined. I'm improvising as I go. And I like that part of it. So I look to create energy and movement. For me, a slab of clay, it sits there and it doesn't have movement, right? But when I manipulate it, and that's what I'm looking for, to get a balance of negative and positive space, I'm also looking to see how the light falls on it. And it creates these interesting cast shadows and found shadows. After the piece is dried up, it's a process where you have to wait for the clay to dry and harden before you can then either you bisque it. And at the bisquing stage or at a later stage, I use an underglaze. An underglaze is basically a color with slip on it. So I use an underglaze and I fire it so the color holds. And then I glaze it. And I've been experimenting with these glazes that are referred to as crawl glazes. So when they're fired at the high temperature of cone 5 or cone 6, they tend to pull away. And that's what gives me this interesting texture to the surface. These are some of the pieces I have in the show. This one's Tango, and this is one of my earlier pieces. And I was more adventurous with my underglazes then, I see from now, because you know I was burnt pretty often in the kiln. So I went down to simpler colors. And I think they work really well because they highlight the form too very well. And you can see the texture that I managed to get with that crawl glaze. Always looking for those negative shapes that make the piece interesting. Here too. Here I've used a strip of clay and I've twisted it into a Mobius kind of shape, which I've then attached and created these really interesting shapes. In this piece, which is also in the show, I tried a different, I've got the movement with these strips of clay, but it's progressed to, I've introduced a new element, which is it's almost like scaffolding here, where I've cut out strips of clay and just attached it. It's tedious, but I love the effect it gives you. The idea of seeing through a shape and seeing those multiple layers of shadows especially when the light hits it, is really what I'm going for. This is one of my newer pieces, and I like it because it's a combination of two techniques. It's like the strips attached to the bottom, which is actually built from pinching. Pinching is a technique where you know, where you pinch shapes. So essentially, yeah. And this is another piece that I worked on, which is created by, here again, using strips that I've attached, kind of like a Mobius strip. But what I like about it is the rhythm it forms by just repeating the form over and over again. So that's kind of what I aim for in my work, to get that rhythmic movement. So some of my influences are here. Of course, Indian art, Indian bronzes. I love the way, and these are ancient bronzes, but I love the way a simple standing pose has so much movement in it. Similar to this, the Nataraja with the movement. It's a dancing pose. Nataraja is dance king. That's the literal translation. And I also love the work of John Arp. And I was kind of so intrigued to find out, see how similar the pose was to the Natraj. So I placed them side by side. This is another beautiful piece by John Arp. And I love the negative and positive spaces that he's got in his work, which is what I always try to do in my work too. Barbara Hepworth is another sculptor that I really like because of her use of negative and positive spaces, the idea of piercing through marble. It's something I find I want to do all the time when I'm working with clay. I want to pierce it. I want to go through it, kind of breaking through. And last of all, Eva Hild. Her work is beautiful and just flows. And there again, it's the use of negative and positive spaces enclosed. So that's it. Thank you all for listening. I hope this was enlightening to y'all. And thanks once again to Amanda and her team and the Morian Art Center.
Thank you, Norbert. That was sure informative. And thank you both for talking about your influences. I'm always interested in who an artist is looking at. Caroline, I'm going to have to look at those two artists that you mentioned. I wasn't familiar with them. Let's see. I think we had a couple questions in there. Heather says, this is for Caroline. How do you know when a piece is finished?
Good question. So it's really easy to kind of beat a painting to death. I know that that's kind of a morbid thing to say, but it's hard to know because it's super easy to overwork a painting. For the most part, I think I know it as long as everything's kind of in order, but I mean, any one of my paintings, I can go back in and work on it for another like 10 hours. So I kind of know as soon as I feel okay. If I feel okay with it, then it's done, I think.
I always wonder that about artists' work. And Caroline, what emotions do you hope people feel when they're looking at your paintings?
I think that peace, tranquility, maybe a little bit of happiness. I definitely like to make my paintings not stressful. So tranquility, I guess, would be a good word to say. But yeah.
I can see that. And she also says, I don't know if you can see that, it says from Heather, Caroline, your paintings are incredible and so realistic. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for the questions.
I think your process is so interesting. One of my favorite takeaways from our studio visit was you using makeup brushes.
Yeah. They're cheaper too. You can buy a lot of them for like $5 online. So
And they're so tiny, some of them. Some of them. I love that. What's next for you, Caroline? Are you going to be working in this series for a while, do you think? Or
definitely still going to be working with probably water themed things. I definitely want to shift a little bit to more color. The two paintings in there that have more oranges in them, those were done, I think, at the end of that series. So I definitely think that more color. The painting that I had towards the end that was up on that one slide with all the images, it had like the purples and the yellows. I definitely want to do more colorful things rather than just, I love painting in, you know, turquoises and blues, but to switch up the colors, really fun. So
I
yeah.
love that. Thank you. And then Mary Helen, who is also in Fresh Squeezed, and we'll be hearing from her in June, asks, Norbert, do you see parallels between your painting and your clay sculptures? It's a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. At this point, I know people have looked at my paintings in my home and have said, "Oh, they see the hand is similar," you know. So they see something similar, which I don't at this point. Um, but yes, that's what I want to do. Eventually, I want to go to reach a point where my paintings are kind of like my abstract sculptures. I'd like to move into abstraction in my paintings at some point, but it's hard for me. I think because sculpture was kind of an unfamiliar medium, I took to it more easily with abstract work. With painting, it's different. I've been doing it for like 40 years. I mean, as not painting, but working on a two-dimensional surface. So the transition, because I've had so much history there, is a little hard to get to just pure abstract painting.
I think one of the artists that you showed us the image of, I think she was working in marble. Is that what you had said?
Yeah, Barbara Hepworth.
Yes. Do you ever think about working in another sculptural material other than clay?
Oh, I'd love to, but they say you can spend a lifetime in clay and you can just master a bit of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, because glazing and all those techniques can get so complicated. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, at this point, I love clay and I'd love to learn marble or even metal sculpture, but it's going to be a long, long road.
One thing at a time.
Yeah,
Plus marble is probably really dusty to work with. So not that clay is not.
the clay is any less, right?
Uh, Mary Helen also asked, Caroline, have you ever tried abstract painting?
Ooh, interesting question. The majority of actually, pretty much all of my paintings have an underpainting under them. And I actually try to approach the underpainting like an abstract painting, not thinking about any sort of specific thing, and trying to abstract the original image. So I don't know if that would count as an abstract painting because it is going into something non-abstract. But I think mm, I've tried it maybe a couple times with like acrylics and things like that. I haven't tried it with oils. So that would be interesting though to try.
Mhm. I know you mentioned your mom is a painter. She's still actively painting.
Yeah, my mom is still actively painting.
Okay. Have you ever had an exhibition with her or shown anywhere with her?
I haven't, but that would be interesting. She does mostly landscapes. She's done portraiture too.
Mhm.
But no, that would be interesting. Yeah.
Mhm. Just curious. I'm always interested. We've had a few shows at the Morian over the years with artists who are related to each other, siblings or, multiple generations. I just think that's really interesting. I know Hannah, who is also in Fresh Squeezed, her mom is a plein air painter, I believe, or she's a painter anyway. So I just find that interesting. It comes from somewhere. So
Yeah, yeah, it comes from somewhere. The apple doesn't fall far.
no, it sure doesn't. Is there any other questions? I think that's all there is in the chat. I'll give it a second. But thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Caroline and Norbert, for spending time with us this evening and sharing about your work. And again, if you can see the work in person, that's always great. It's on view through June 22nd at the Chihuly Collection in downtown St. Pete. And the next gallery talk is coming up next Tuesday, which I think is the 20th, May 20th, and you'll be hearing from Benedicta and Lily. So that will be a good one too. There's no other questions, then we'll sign off. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.